that time again. And let's remember, Michael Beirut started this job. I'm just his fill-in until he's ready to do it again. So, back to our wonderful judges. You recall Gail Anderson, Aaron Draplin, Robin Ray, and our brand new special guest star judge, the remarkable Alan Chochinoff from SVA, Core 77, and AIGA board member. Welcome, Alan. So, let's bring out the contestants and see how they did. Our young, brave people, come forth. Okay, I want to remind you guys what the stakes are here. $1,000. Yeah. A one-year subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud, LG ultra-wide 21:9 monitor, Shapeways 3D printing $250 gift certificate, a one-year subscription to Shutterstock, a one-year subscription to Skillshare, plus, as you've already found out, the adoration of thousands of people. All right. Now, all 7 of our contestants are obviously extraordinary designers with remarkable courage and talents. Remember, they'd love to connect with you, some who have already been released, probably physically. So please remember to use your Twitter handle, and you can see that on the app and in the conference website. All right. Now, you guys had about 24 hours to tackle a problem that probably would have taken any other designer, any other studio, 3 or 4 months just to start thinking about. So this is your moment. You can do it. So the assignment was to communicate the importance of changing our culture of gun violence. Let's see what they've done. Russell, let's start with you today.
Hello again. So, gun violence, gun control. This is obviously a pretty divisive issue and complex one, to say the least. All night last night and all morning this morning, people have stopped me to say, like, I need to tell you what I think about this. And I'm like, thanks, I think. This is a very complex one because a lot of people already have a lot of data and facts to support whatever preconceived notions that they approach the topic with. And there's news outlets on both sides that will feed whatever it is that they want to think. That all is already in place. I don't know, if you've ever seen, I'm going to imagine that you haven't, someone ever post to Facebook, like, here's a link to an article with 21 reasons why gun control won't work. And someone comments like, thanks for sharing this. This totally changed my opinion. That never happens. So instead, you can go to the next slide. I wanted to create a campaign that is not about facts, but about faces. I wanted to get both sides together under something that they can hopefully have a conversation about. I think that anytime I've ever talked to people who believe something differently from me on this issue, there's a general anger that everyone feels towards the media that we celebrate and almost mythologize and glorify by the coverage that we give to the shooters themselves, to the killers. So the campaign that I'm proposing instead is a way to glorify those that we lost and to celebrate them as if they're family. You can go to the next slide again. So I wanted to create basically a digital memorial book to archive the stories of the people that we've lost. And for people to be able to contribute to them, to say, this is who this person was to me, this is what I think about them, so that their voice is able to continue on after they're gone, so that they're not silenced. You can go to the next slide again. And as you work through this site, you have stories chronicling, photos or contributions. I don't know if any of you have ever lost someone, but when I've lost friends of mine, a weird thing happens. You almost like rally around their Facebook page or like blogs are created and people just feel this need to communicate to everyone else, like, I'm still trying to get engaged with this person. You can go to the next slide again. I think that something changes when you put people's names in place of statistics. And I wanted to create a campaign that would do that. And I actually will say, this is an interesting slide to me, and Bonnie told me earlier not to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. This slide is a design mistake. This slide is a design failure because it's really hard to read. And when I set out to make this slide, my intention was, oh my gosh, I'm going to have all this data with all these names, and I'm going to do that as a bar graph rather than a typical bar graph so that you can be overwhelmed by the amount of names on the screen. And you couldn't. You can't read any of it. And it's because once I started like trying to actually process it, and the names are all faked to, obviously don't want to use their names when they don't give permission, but the names are fake, but the actual design of the graph is accurate. Like these are the actual numbers of casualties and fatalities together in mass shootings. Mass shootings in this graph categorized as a public mass shooting of more than 4 individuals. By year going back to 1982. And once I got to 2012, it just like threw the whole graph off. And I was like, I can't fit this anymore. Like this messes up the design. That year, of course, being Sandy Hook and the Aurora Theater. You can go to the next slide. To conclude the site, I kind of wanted to make a record scratch moment where you can say, like, this is my family. Like, I've gone through all these stories. I've experienced this. And I want to be a part of it. So I wanted to add a portion where you can add your name to commit to the idea that you will not go silent. You can go to the next slide again. In order to create basically what I wanted to think of as a digital rally, a digital march, rather than a march in Washington, a march in this moment in culture. And so that you can see that like you're not alone. I think a lot of times it feels like, man, this is such an overwhelming issue that we'll never deal with, but it would be really encouraging to me to know that there's a lot of frustration with it. You're not alone. Don't give up. The inspiration for the way that I phrased this, to not go silent, was from the poem about not going gently into the night. And I wanted people to be able to rally around the idea that like we got to rage against the dying of the light. So thank you.
Beautiful. Can we start with you, Robin?
Yeah, I always seem to be in the hot seat. Why did I pick this chair again? Well, I like to kind of process your proposal. It sounds like the idea is to keep sort of this online journal. Mm-hmm. And would anybody be able to contribute to it, or how would that be moderated, or have you thought that far?
I have. So I don't think that it should be open for contribution. I think that we live, unfortunately, in an age of really disgusting trolls, so I don't want to open it up. Instead, if this was something that I really wanted to run, like I think that there should be people that actually, work with the families so that they can first ensure that it's okay to put them on there, that they want it, and that they give the stories so that it's more controlled.
I see. And so I keep going back to the brief, which was, I wrote it down, part of it, which is to communicate the importance of changing gun culture. Do you feel that this, and I agree with you 100% that statistics don't do it. Those are just little easy to digest sound bites, and everybody likes to read them. But how does this actually, in your words, change gun culture?
Yeah, I think that hopefully it's supposed to create a felt need. Just that when you start to interact with people whom you've forgotten about, whom you now think of Sandy Hook and you're like, yeah, there was 20 kids and there was 2 adults. And I think that I want to constantly be pushing that back in people's faces and saying like, these families are still not over this. Yeah. I just want to try to rally people and say like, it's not gone away for the people that it affected, so it shouldn't go away to you, and you shouldn't give way to apathy.
I like it. I mean, I like the whole idea of it. I don't know if it will actually change anything, and I guess that's the big challenge.
Yeah.
I don't have the solution. I don't know what I would do either.
You haven't been up all night?
I feel like he's personalized it by bringing faces to it, and that does really affect me, seeing those kids, seeing that young man. I feel like you are you're taking the right steps to actually make a change, and you've done something really tremendous in 24 hours.
Yeah. I do agree with that for sure.
I mean, I would concur. Just something about elevating it above a stat in another list. It's heavy to see that kid's face because it was a week ago or something. But it's there now. And it's like when you go to the 9/11 and you can see all the names and feel them. They're there forever. And I think this is the first step in making something like that. And how could people share it to get it back in the faces of these the other side who would have a troll comment? How could they? It's such heavy fare. There's something about, I don't know. I think it's successful because it's dark, and it's heavy. But how do you make that something kind of like, dare I say, fun to want to share and stuff, or something? I don't know how you do it. I think the thinking is really good. It's brave and
He's got all
get
the
it out there.
social links up at the top, too.
It's just, how do you share this stuff, without it becoming something that's like politicized?
Yeah.
This is the first step, is putting their faces so everyone can see it,
Yeah, and I don't know if politicized is always a negative term, but this is political. A couple things come to mind. I think what's interesting, so you would talk, so atomizing this to people instead of phenomena or incidents. So People magazine published the 535 congressional members' phone numbers in the magazine. So then that reaches a 3.5 million circulation. So they're bringing it down to individual people, and you're bringing it down to individual people, and I think that's really great. I believe that history, I'm having a hard time connecting with this part of the room over here, sorry. I think that it's very well done. The call to action is, I think, a really important point, is what are you trying to get people to do? And you were actually kind of clear about that. You said you wanted people to participate and to put their name on this thing. And so I think if we're giving up that the idea is not going to move the needle and that politicians aren't going to move the needle, I actually believe that history is changed by individuals, Margaret Mead, and indeed that's the only thing that has happened if you look through history. So you've got a lot of individuals here. What a group of these individuals can do is another question, but I like the idea of atomizing it down to specifics. I think it is really well handled. I think people would participate.
Thanks.
I think it's beautiful. If I can add one thing to that, I really love the fact that you take it away from hard, cold, legal, yes gun, no gun, all of this kind of information, and you simply make it about people and allow them to make the determination of how do you solve this problem. That's, that really resonated with me. It's really beautiful. Amy.
All right. How many American citizens have died due to gun violence this week, this month, this year? I'll tell you the answer. Enough. It doesn't matter what that number is. Enough people have died, and we have had enough. The We've Had Enough campaign is a social movement with a few components that happens not just online, but in the real world, and seeks to create change and create change with the culture of gun violence through 3 steps: humanizing the victims of these attacks. Sorry. Humanizing the victims of these attacks and linking to a strong call to action. And I'm blanking on my third. I'm sorry. I've been so good.
It's going to be so good that it's blowing your own mind right now.
But mobilizing people, creating a sense of urgency. That was it. So creating a sense of urgency, mobilizing people, and linking to a call to action. So we can go to the next slide. So the first component of the We've Had Enough campaign is creating a traveling pop-up monument or memorial to victims of gun violence in the United States. We have national monuments and memorials for victims of terrorist attacks and those who have died in war serving our country, and I think it's fitting that we honor the people that have died on U.S. soil from these attacks. So this is a traveling museum, like I said, that will be built in shipping containers and will travel across the country. It will humanize the victims of these by not just labeling them as statistics, but telling you their story, telling you who they are, and going into what could be very painful detail about how we lost them, because it's not pretty, but that's what happened. So you'll see here that I have Christina Blaish. She was a survivor of the Aurora shooting in the movie theater. She's also an Army veteran. But I'm proposing long-form video installations that are part of this museum. So you'd have a video interview with her and other survivors or family members of victims to tell really what happened in their own words, and really bring this story to life visually in a way that is easy to create as a pop-up monument to bring across the country. It's not only going to focus on mass shootings, which are terrible, but also the gun violence that happens every day, like the violence I encounter in Chicago. Because gun violence is not just related to some psychos that have a breakdown of some sort, but it's also tied to a lot of issues like public health and inequality in our country. So that will be addressed as well. There will be a interactive component, so you'll see that these are video screens, but they're also touch screens for some of them. The one on the top right shows victims of the Charleston shooting. So you'd be able to read those individual stories, but also share up a story of your own if gun violence has affected your life in any way. And these videos will be able to be viewed at the museum, but also online. And there will also be interactive infographics, because the numbers do matter, but you have to tell that story in a way that's not just a number. We can go to the next slide. So the most important part of all of this is channeling it into something. If you're like me, you see the news and you get really angry, and maybe you tweet about it, maybe you cry a little bit to yourself, and you don't even know what to write on Facebook, so you don't post anything. But where does that go? It doesn't go anywhere. Part of this is standing up and saying that we've had enough. The website that I'm proposing will allow people, we can go to the next slide, we'll come back to this one. It allows you to type in your address and find out where your local elected officials stand on these issues. And from there, you can write to them. All of this will culminate in a holiday called the National Day of Life, which will be a day of peaceful protest all across the country. You can go to the next slide as well. So there would be materials to help spread the word about it, like the billboards that were on a previous slide, but it's a chance for people to get together, to talk, for lawmakers to talk, and for people to really rally around this change, because the only way to change the culture is to elect officials that have the power to make that change. So my graphic treatment is very simple. It's urgent. It doesn't have to be slick. It's reminiscent of old protest posters and signage. And it's just what I thought was the best way to actually do something about this issue.
It's good. I think one of the things that, with the first presentation, I had a little bit of a disconnect with was the online journal part where people would go to and be able to share and contribute. I like the idea that there's some sort of traveling component, and you were mentioning, I think, a pop-up type of vehicle or display. What, in your mind, what would that be?
So I was thinking it would be built in shipping containers or whatever containers fit on semi-trucks as well. So it's something that's easily mobile, and it's not slick, it's whatever we have because it's an important issue. But it's also something that could be placed where people don't have to go out of their way to find it. Like there could be trucks parked at the mall parking lot, and you could be on your way to buy a new pair of jeans, and you are confronted with this, and you have no choice.
I love that. I mean, I think that would be my concern, I guess, with the first one, is that how relying on people to actually participate. I feel like when it's taken to them, it's hard to turn away. So that part of it I really like.
Thank you.
I don't know if I have anything critical to say. I like the idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, same here. Do you feel like this is something that you would like to pursue now that you've spend all of a night on it?
Absolutely. So if anyone would like to partner with me in this in some way,
Go, girl.
let's do it. We're in a room full of the greatest, most passionate design minds in the country. Let's fucking do something. Sorry for swearing.
I think what's powerful is just the singular quality of one word, you know, and the way that those things are little weapons. Hashtags, bigger and bigger and bigger. That's a pretty heavy word in this context, and I think that's successful. How do you design something so heavy? You know, every choice is political, every typeface is political, and I think that by stripping it down, you know, it's successful. And it's one night you came up with this, so hats off. You know, impressive. I don't really know how to pick it apart, you know. It's just such a, why don't we have this shit going on right now, you know?
Why don't we
Someone
wanna
did
do
that
it?
in a night, so who can get behind her and have it out tomorrow morning? So maybe we all just put enough. She comes up with an incredible little, you know, tweet,
Yeah.
and we all have 2,000-3,000 people put this out there and see if we just can't kickstart it right now.
I'd like to see, just to build on that, I'd like to see a PDF of this that's just online tonight.
The
that people
URL
can
we've
print
had
out.
enough.us is available, so I can purchase it later.
We will all pitch in $1. So that if the campaign extended, so people can download PDFs, they can print this out on their printers, they can make their own T-shirts, they can make their own billboards. You know, what concerns me here is this, the sort of bumps up against this idea of, can a poster change the world? Like, what are the limits of graphic design? You're not getting into any Second Amendment here. You're stopping at, like, get to know, what side your representative is on, which is sort of green or red, right? Yes or no. And which has a bias to it, right? Which is like what you want to happen and what people not you want to happen. So I think it's really well done, but it's not a concern about you and your work. It's about the concern about the power of design and what our responsibility is and where we're supposed to stop. Like how much a detail and sort of complexity are we willing and capable of taking on to actually do something as opposed to rally to do something. I would like to believe that our responsibilities go past that line. Can you just rewind through this a little bit? Because I think it's important if we saw some of the other pieces. Yeah, so this is where, the next one is a more conventional approach. It's not a bad approach, it's just I'm not sure that it's sufficient today. And this is really for everybody. I think this is the moment that we're at in design right now. Is like, is that going to be, forgive the pun, enough? Like you crystallize something and you give people this caption and this name, this word, and I think that that's really successful. And now what happens next? Whose responsibility is that? We may see that in another presentation today. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what you think about
Well,
what are the limits here.
I'd like to see enough over the face of some of these people who vote against this stuff.
All right.
It becomes something.
Kick it up a
Well, to embarrass these assholes, because it works over.
Yeah.
It works alongside the really heavy portraiture and stuff. That's so much to see.
Now, does that make you the mentor or the mentee here with the two of you?
Oh, I just dig it. I don't know.
It's like you're co-creating this together now. I like
Because then, it's like that word takes on different things. It evokes this sort of very intense sympathy, but also makes someone look like a fool. So that's kind of like where this thing I think can
enough
really
out of your mouth.
Yeah, I mean just right over their face. Like you take a sticker, and imagine then someone, I don't know, bombing these guys with red. I don't know, enough something, right? Yeah. Because then it takes on a very heavy side of, when they would drop the glitter on the people, there's something to that, or in this really somber thing. So there's a lot of, that one word, there's a lot of different ways that can be applied. So there's something here. I don't know.
Great. Thank you all so much.
I got a I got a tiny quibble. I'm not a graphic designer, but I got a tiny quibble with the kerning of the E and the apostrophe there. Just like 1 pixel. Two pixels. I mean, I'm not going to go nuts here.
You could probably hire him as a junior designer to help you out with that problem.
So the 3 of us. Now I'm on the team, please. Like the kerning, you know.
Sarah?
Please.
Sarah's up.
Hello. I would like to start by saying that I'm not here to provide my personal opinion of whether you should be pro-guns or not pro-guns.
You can
But
say
I'm here,
anti-guns.
but I am here to ask a question from all of us. And I would like to start by saying that I was very inspired by the speeches of Robert Kennedy. And I've been listening to these speeches for the past few months, and I would like to show you something. Can we get the video, please?
We cannot continue to deny and postpone the demands of our own people while spending billions in the name of freedom elsewhere around the globe. No government can sustain international law and order unless it can do so also at home.
We've endured too many of these tragedies in the past few years. I've had to make statements like this too many times. Communities like this have had to endure tragedies like this too many times. At some point, we as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries. It doesn't happen in other places with this kind of frequency.
Hand in hand with freedom of speech goes the power to be heard, to share in the decisions of government which shape men's lives.
There's been another mass shooting in America, this time in a community college in Oregon. That means there are more American families, moms, dads, children, whose lives have been changed forever. As I said just a few months ago, and I said a few months before that, and I said each time we see one of these mass shootings, are not enough. It's not enough.
So there's a clear message here from the President of the United States, and I think the actual response was, prayers are not enough. Our actions are not enough. Whatever we're doing or whatever we're not doing and whatever our leaders are doing is not enough because nothing is changing. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I think one of the things that I was drawn to from the speeches of Bobby Kennedy was that generation really engaged. And to a degree, I think we've lost that. We engaged via social media and likes, and that world lives in a computer for personal gratification sometimes, but we need to see the discontent or the content with the situation of the world as it is. It's in our hands. Can we, next slide, please? So we have a voice, and everyone here in this room is a designer. You have a very powerful voice. You have the means to communicate anything that you want to communicate, anything that you profoundly believe in, and you have the tools and the skills to know how to get people to see it. That's powerful. That's powerful, and I don't feel like we exercise that voice strongly enough and often enough. So I would like all of you to reach out under your seats. There is a red piece of paper under your seats. I have a piece of paper for you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks. And for you too. Can you pass it? Thanks. So I would like to leave you with this quote. Can we bring the quote up, please? I believe that if I were to expect a politician to use his or her voice to better the world, we should expect the same from ourselves. And that's a quote by a fellow designer, Michael Ian Kay. Can we all bring this up? Can we see it? Can we see it so you guys can look around and see how powerful all of you are? I want you all to look around and see this up in your hands. You guys have this power. This is one audience, but anything that you want to say, if you want to bring awareness to this, gun control, we have to get out there and make this be known and make this be noticed. And that's all I wanted to say tonight.
John P. was a president.
Well, I think it's interesting. You said that whether you're pro-gun or not pro-gun, I think it's okay to say anti-gun. Yeah. I like this because it's, again, participatory, and actually seeing this view, and the camera got some of it, was kind of startling. And it's so noisy, and it's really hard to create if we're image makers, it's hard to create an image that is going to actually stop us for a second. And I thought that was actually quite arresting. The supercut is smart. I like the video. I don't know if you see that as a PSA or as sort of a warm-up for us for your campaign. That's actually a question.
It's more of a providing contextual, like a recap of a lot of things. So the New York Times came out with this article where they put President Obama, and it's the transition of years. And this happens like from 2012 and so on and so forth. So it adds up incredibly. And these guys cut the video in that way, and I wanted to bring that in with the messages from past leaders. Because sometimes we feel like maybe politicians don't listen to people, but maybe they'll listen to other politicians. How can we speak to them through these people who have also been in positions of authority until we can actually assume the same position that they're in, or at least on that level of equality?
It's still at the level of abstract to me. I mean, if you want this country to have reasonable gun laws, if that is any kind of word that anyone can agree on, reasonable, then I think that you need to say it. Again, you're sort of pushing it to the politicians. And it's not just for you. I wonder where is our line? I think we actually have to step over that line. Anyway, I'm a fan of this.
I'm looking for sort of bite-sized graphic devices that we can go and slather over someone's rhetoric or someone's image of both the worst of the worst, people grieving, or someone doing something to be contrarian, and I'm not quite seeing that. I'm looking for a big drop quote or just a big plop on something from Mr. Kennedy. What are these pieces? Because that was really heavy right there to pull those things out and remind us that this is 50 and 60 years. People have been battling this stuff. But I want to see more little pieces. In the previous one, there were little bite-sized things that were big, really, really big, but also really small on your Twitter, which would have a lot of impact. So I don't know if it's just a hashtag is enough or something. So.
Yeah, I feel like I need a clearer call to action because I see this and I see the response and it's powerful, and now what do I do? So I'm curious to know what you would want me to do next. What would that be, actually?
I think my objective with this, or where I realized it would be successful to me, is if we could at least get all of us to ask ourselves that question of what would we do? I think it really comes down to going from being more involved with your leaders to actually becoming leaders yourselves? How much do you want to effectuate change that you have to be there? Because like you're right. You're saying, I think like there are a lot of social campaigns, PSAs all the time. You see a commercial, you send a donation in the mail, and how far does that get anybody? So,
I would have loved you to contextualize it and said, listen, everybody in the room is in the persuasion business, right? So if you're going to raise this red sheet, you're doing something this week. Like this is your pledge. Because that kind of action needs like the cheerleader, which is you, in some sort of like the first mover. And then you are going to activate 2,200 people who are literally in the business, in the persuasion business. And so if it's a pledge and it's not a mic drop, but it's actually like raising your hand and saying, I am willing to like participate in a meaningful way because this is the kind of work that I am trained, kind of expertise that I have, then I am putting it on, I am putting me on the line, which is what your quote, addresses. And so I'd like that sharpened up like that. That I'm very interested in.
Well, I was hoping to see a slide where, like, remember when the Pride stuff that went down and everyone could rainbow eyes all their stuff? It was gutsy than to let your stuff be affected by that and be, say you stand with your friends, you stand with human rights, you stand with equality. Because some people didn't put that shit on their thing. And it affected me to kind of say, oh, really? But that was a nice little thing that was quick and easy to use. And it was easily downloadable. And there, we're here, could you apply to all of your Facebook images in protest? To say,
So you want a device.
A little thing, because that brought a lot of people out and said, I'm proud to show this and support this. Where's that little component where you can go?
This is that device. This is what she's proven
Yeah,
by all these people holding up this piece of paper.
But people don't
this
use
room
paper anymore.
Yeah,
has
I
been
actually-
engaged.
phone.
2,000
No,
people
paper's
have
back.
now seen the power
Print
of this
people,
community.
unite.
Actually,
I think like
Hold it up. Print people.
I'm going to take this
I guess
and
I'm
put it on my
misusing it
desk,
now.
and I'm going to be reminded I should spend half an hour less working on that logo for someone and maybe think about doing something here. I've never seen such a strong way to demonstrate group power.
I think the thinking is good. The thinking is good. That's why how do you reach everybody with this stuff and make it, that's the world we're in now. It's on a
I think what when we see social media as this vast, limitless, limitless
Limitful-less. Yeah.
way of reaching people. But I think it's only effective to a degree. Like I said, it lives within a confined space. And I think nothing is more effective like touching people, not really touching. I'm sorry.
I'll go for that.
But really connecting with people. And I think
In a touchy way. Yeah.
yes, in a way that past generations, maybe it's just like the nostalgia that I was getting from all these activities. The young people were like going to the streets. I'm not really sure we do that anymore. We've become very, very passive and very apathetic, and then it just becomes the norm.
Yeah, apathy's been mentioned a lot of times today. It's everyone thinks that it was better before.
You just witnessed a Bobby Kennedy moment. You witnessed the mindless menace of violence. It's like Detroit, 1968, a room about this amount of people. He says, our lives are too short, the work is too great to be done to let this mindless menace of violence continue. That we still talk about today, and she did that here with this group of powerful
actually,
communicators.
I think it's a really important point. Like, did you create a memorable moment? And, are you going to move, again, are you going to move hundreds of thousands of people, or are you going to move, 2,200 people who have fucking power, right? And who can create imagery and campaigns who can actually, hit hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people into the tens of millions.
That's their responsibility.
Exactly.
She's handed that off to them, as a democracy should, and said, now you spread your voice.
Bring your judge's chair.
Sorry.
over here.
I know I'm supposed to be like,
Bring that chair
I'm
over
supposed to be like
here.
a nice bystander. Sorry, I'm backing off.
well, I guess I'm having an issue with how how it's living, like the container that it lives in.
Well, I don't know if this was your concept, but like maybe it's over now.
I think
like
it
it
only
had
lives
its
here.
thing. Is that true? Is that what you were proposing? Or is this like going out onto the internet? Or is like this
No.
is
I think sometimes we bite more than we can chew. This is a step. I don't know. It was also 24 hours.
Yeah, thank you. And never apologize for your work. She just said, don't dilute it. Thank you. Dilute it. We've given, I'm like a big fair person because like I'm all Canadian and everything. So we've given this contestant like a lot of more dialogue. Can we like whip through the last two? I know it's the last day, so apparently you can go over time on the last day.
Right.
And maybe see if there's any more discourse on the other two projects. Is that reasonable? Yeah?
We do that? Yes.
Yeah. Do we have the technology?
Amazing. And you need to join AIGA as a president as soon as possible.
Your
I'm not
mic
doing
is
that.
on.
Kidding?
Oh, perfect. Yes. Actually, go to the index slide. That was really useful. Yeah. Then we can be like a typical client, like, well, if you can take that color and put it in that campaign for those stakeholders and do it like a lot cheaper. That'd be good.
These are all so good.
Yeah.
Just kudos.
It's interesting we have like the enough and then the not enough.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that may be funny, but it's interesting to me. It's like if that's the emotion, work together, yeah. Oh, put them together.
Yeah.
Typical client, yeah. They all win. It's like,
Okay, you guys have 20 minutes to vote.
Good luck.
Hashtag, so do it on the
I know what I'm
app
voting.
and choose who you
I
think is
already know what I'm
the
voting for.
winner of Command X. I know that's incredibly difficult here. These are amazing solutions. So go out there, fight amongst yourselves. I'll let these guys fight amongst themselves backstage, and I'll have some words with them. All right, thank you so much.
Let's go discuss.
All right, it's that time. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. Awesome prizes, fame, glory, wonderful things will happen to you forever. Your lives will be charmed. Before we announce who the winner is, though, I need to say a few things to you guys. Okay, first, Sarah, you are remarkable. You will change the world, I am sure of it. You have such an incredible, unique voice. And Russell, you have such a thoughtful process and you have this intense commitment to craft. You are going to be a remarkable designer. I'm proud to have worked with you. And Amy, you have this ability to bring joy and excitement into every project and make it sing. That is rare and unique. You should be incredibly proud of yourself. It's been my honor to work with all 7 of the contestants, but you guys are remarkable. Now, let's bring out our judges and our mentors.
Oh, that's fine.
All right. Now, everyone's waiting for that moment. But first, let's talk about what we all think about it. No, let's not. Let's go right to the moment. Okay. These people all deserve a standing ovation, no matter who the winner is. But this year's Command X winner is Amy. Congratulations.
Woo! Good.
Stand up. Let's go. Congratulations.
Chicago.
Hey guys. Gather over here. Let's gather over there. It's easier. It's group photo time. Sorry. Always happens.
Oh my gosh, that's intense.
It's like a Friday night.
I know.
Thank you so much. Next time, Command X 2016.